SME, which is the Small and Medium Enterprises Development Agency, defines the micro, small, and medium enterprises as those organizations having the following attributes. But we have just been informed that they have come up with a new definition where they are saying that the SME definition is in terms of employee side is 1,000 and with asset base of, I think asset base is still the same. But you see the definition of SMIDAN. SMIDAN reports that there are currently 37 million SMEs in Nigeria, accounting for 80% of total number of enterprises and about 84% of total labor force. I'm going to show a table that will cover a wide range of activities including agriculture, manufacturing, mining and services, which are the focal areas of Exim. Which are the focal points, the focal sectors that Exim is intervening in, which is contributing 48.47% to GDP in 2013. People can move the slides. That's what I've informed. Now, this is the new definition of the micro, small enterprises and medium enterprises that has been approved by SMIDAN. SMIDAN is the authority when it comes to defining these enterprises. So they are saying that the micro enterprises, they have an employment of less than 10, and the small enterprises, that's the micro, small. The micro is less than 10, the small enterprises 10 to 49, and in terms of monetary value 10 to 100 million, less than 100 million naira. And then they are saying that for medium enterprises it's 50 to 199, and then in terms of monetary value it's about 1 billion. So when you have to define an SME, you are saying that in terms of employment is 10 to 199, and in terms of money, you are looking at 10 to 1 billion. I mean 1 million, excluding land. Now, the next slide. This slide is to show the area of activities that the small and medium enterprises are involved in. They are involved in agriculture, in agro-processing, that is agro-allied, and you have all the product and activities that are involved there. You have the manufacturing, you have building, solid minerals, information technology and communications, educational establishments, tourism and leisure, transportation, trade and commerce, and then you have other services. Next slide. In spite of the number of SMEs that we have mentioned here, they contribute only 7.27% to export earnings in Nigeria, as against 42% in India and 37% in Hong Kong. This partly explains the continued dominance of oil and gas sector, which consistently account for 70% of the revenue that the government has, and in terms of export earnings, is still 95%. Currently, the government's efforts is geared towards diversification of the economy and positioning the SMEs as the engine of growth. When we were having a panel, I made a comment that when we pray that oil should dry up in Nigeria. And some people were looking at it as being very funny. In 1970, it was what we got from agriculture that we used in exploring for oil. Now, when we got oil, we forgot about these other sectors that have more potential than even our oil. Nobody is using the revenue from oil to develop agriculture, to develop solid minerals, to develop manufacturing, and the services sector, which is huge. The way we are, I describe ourselves as people that are very successful but don't know how to manage success. Nigerians are very successful but we don't know how to manage success. Because the potential that you have in these other sectors, the non-oil sectors, they are more than what we can get from oil. Under the Vision 2020 plan, the SME contribution to GDP is expected to increase to 75% by the year 2020, while the contribution of export earnings is expected to increase to 80% the same year. But this is going to require concerted effort by both the government and the private sector to remove those impediments to their growth and development and bring more of the SMEs into the formal sector. We are coming to that. When we were discussing, we had mentioned that the SMEs that we have, which are in the informal sector, are 1/4 of what has been captured and integrated into the formal sector. A study carried out in 2013 by Nigerian Export Promotion Council showed that on a yearly basis we have about 12 billion worth of SMEs trading informally. And only about 3 billion worth of SMEs, were captured. Before the rebasing of our economy, we kept saying in Exim that Nigeria was clearly the biggest economy in Africa. And the only problem why any other person was saying that South Africa was the biggest is because we did not have our trade captured. It was not recorded. You need statistics to read anything that you want. As soon as we rebase our economy, it's not as if we'll be able to integrate this informal sector into the formal economy. So it is very important so that the policymakers will know the level of informal trade. There's so much benefits that we can derive from formalizing our trade. Very critical is the need to improve access to funds to acquire modern technology, engage qualified personnel, and other production inputs. We have said that some of our products don't meet the quality standard that's required in some of these global markets. We're not very competitive. We don't have a competitive advantage to be able to compete very well. And what are some of the reasons? Because we don't have the new technology to produce goods that will meet some of these standards. Next. I'm sure you are going faster than me. What we have shown here is basically to show the contribution of the SMEs to the export earnings in other jurisdictions. Nigeria is the least with 7.27, and you see what is happening in other countries. How do we prepare an SME for the export market? Next. For you to access funding from Exim, you must be an incorporated entity, either a limited liability company or a cooperative. So we're talking about corporation or business entity, and then you have to register with the Nigerian Export Promotion Council. As an entrepreneur, you need to open your own accounts and begin to maintain records of what is happening in your own business. That does not mean that we cannot support green fees, but those green fees must be well structured to give us that confidence that they'll be able to perform. You need to give us a business plan that meets our requirements, You want to identify the sources of raw materials, and then you need to have data submitted or the contract that you have gotten for you to get money from Exim and Exim. We need to have that. You need to have knowledge of updated government export prohibition list. There are some products that are prohibited, and we don't finance them. You also need to know the foreign markets. The international market prices of that product that you want to either manufacture or you want to sell, including the quality specification. Most of you will recall that about 3-4 weeks ago, seven of our products have been banned by EU because they don't meet the standards. They have been banned completely. It's not an import restriction. And then you have to complete the NXS forms, and then you open an export processing account. For you to manage this, diligent adherence to sanctity of contracts and quality standards specification agreed upon with the buyers. It is very important. We get to this again, but it is so important that we need to produce goods that will meet the standard quality that will make us very competitive in international markets. And if we are having issues of our own products being banned, we need to look in-house. How do we stop that? Especially now that we want to diversify our own economy. We know what is happening in the oil sector, and it's not a place that anybody can rely on. Next. Now the next one is trade relations between Nigeria and US. The relations between Nigeria and US has been dominated by oil. But that was prior to the discovery of the shale oil in US. Now that has been discovered between 2011 and 2013, Nigerian oil export to US has dropped by 66% because US is now producing their own oil. Total Nigeria's export to US, according to data that we have from OCTAD, dropped from 35.17 billion US dollars in 2011 to 6.47 billion in 2014. And then our total imports, according to OCTAD, dropped from 6.47 billion in 2013 to 5.90 billion in 2014. Clearly, there is a trading balance. In spite of the opportunities provided by AGOA, that's the African Growth and Opportunity Act, since May 2000, Nigeria has not been able to increase her non-oil export to US. When the president of the chamber was talking, he said that South Africa exported goods to America under AGOA worth 36 billion. What we have done as a country is 5 billion US dollars. So you can imagine an African country doing 36 billion, and we, being the biggest economy in Africa, we are doing only 5 billion. That cause for concern. Now, how can we try to increase this? The key to increase trade relations between Nigeria and US lies in boosting how we can boost non-oil export. And we have the potential to increase trade relations with US in few of the foreign areas. There are so many. But we know in Africa, the value-added agro products, we can look at cocoa, we can look at rubber, we can look at cashew, and shea products. And then in the services sector, particularly the creative and entertainment industry. Nollywood is one of the fastest growing in the world. I will come back to it.